This lecture is about staves, and staves are just general way to talk about pole weapons, because there are so many different pole weapons, you can't really master them all. But with the general ideas we are going to talk about, you will be able to take any pole weapon and not master it, but make a good use of it. Pole weapons can be of different lengths and different weight, and it's very significant because we are talking about weapons that rotate a lot, and the speed of rotation is very much influenced by the weight of the weapon. If the weapon is heavy as this staff, this bow, so the rotation will be slow. If the weapon is light as this staff, so the rotation will be fast. With light weapons we can move faster, but of course they have less momentum and less impact when they are hitting. The length of the weapon is also very significant for rotation speed. This half staff handbow is of course rotates much faster than the long staff, but of course it hits much lighter and not as powerful as the heavy staff. So all of them are different and have different usage, but they have similarities. Of course, this handbow can also be taken as a generic short spear, for example, and not only as staff or walking cane, not only as a long stick. Of course, different weapon size, weight, length has also significance in the way of holding. You can hold the weapon, this stick for example, I can hold single-handedly or two-handedly. Long staff and the short staff also I can hold like this, I can hold like this, and I can hold here like this, and they are all different holding, at least three different holdings, and they interchange into one another. It's not like you start your fight with this hold and this will be the only way you're holding the stick. No, it will change when you rotate the stick, when you move, when you change hands, when you want to poke and move, it will change. But the basic is that you have different holdings. With the short staffs, we have the single weapon fighting. We usually don't hold the long staffs, the long pole weapons with one hand. We can, especially when we do this movement, but the special thing about the half staff is that we can use it as if we are fighting with a single-handed small stick. We can't do it with the long staffs, only with the half staff. And we can hold it with the other three holdings, the two-handed holdings, which I will show you with the longer staff. So, with the long staff, let's start talking about this holding. I hold at the edge, at one of the ends of the stick, and this is usually for lighter weapons, not for heavy weapons, because we want to use this sort of manipulations. And it's not only the hands, the entire body is here. See? I'm using hand against hand movement and the entire body behind it. I want to poke. So this is the archetype for pole weapon with a blade at the edge or spear, because I can push, pull, hit at the far distance. With heavy weapon, it's much harder to do this sort of manipulation, but with light staff, I can do it and hit and rotate and switch hands, switch directions, just by holding at the edge. So the holding is this. The far end hand is at pronation and the other hand is in supination, and the work is together. The entire body is together. The hands work with rotational movement in opposite direction. See? Like bicycle wheel. Like bicycle wheel. Push, pull, defend, switch hands, stab, divert. Very versatile, excellent for long pole weapons, with blade, with no blade, spears, staffs. The third holding we have is both hands in the middle in pronation. Not like this, like this. This is pronation, this is supination, so both hands in pronation. And this is for fighting symmetrically with both sides. It's not very good for figure 8 movement. For full figure 8 it requires hard manipulation with the body. But it works on the cycles, you see? Cycle backwards, cycle forward, and I hit with both sides. I can easily stab. When I stab this way, my body is unified behind the hit. So this is very good for staffs. Also, if I have two-sided pole weapon or one-sided pole weapon, but then I don't really prefer one side over the other with this symmetrical holding. This holding is emphasizing the use of two ends of the stick simultaneously. One side, other side, hit down, hit up, up again. This is also here. See? When I want to change sides. And the third holding we have is this. In the middle, one hand is pronation, one hand is in supination, here. And the pronation hand is usually at the back, and the supination in the front. It's not as useful to stand like this, because then we have only one direction of movement. This. Here, you see, only one direction of movement, not really here when we are on the side. I'm locked. But this way I can hit in many directions and switch sides and hands. See? And switching sides, well, this is the backhand. If I start symmetrically, then I can of course hit with both sides. And this is mainly for using figure 8, because I can rotate the staff very easily, switching hands very easily from side to side, and I'm using figure 8 mainly. And I can switch very easily to the edge holding here, and then here again. I'm changing. I can very easily pull, strike, pull again, strike with all directions. So we actually move from one holding to another all the time when we use pole weapons. So we start talking about directions of attack. And we start with the hanbo, the half step. Single-handedly, we've already talked about it when we talked about stick. And the directions of attack with the short staff, besides the single-handed options, are the same as with long staffs. So I'll show you the different holding only on the long staff, but it works same with the short staff. We start with this holding, the one edge holding, and let's start directions of attack. The 45 degrees, 1, 2, we are talking about the cross. And pay attention, while I demonstrate, I'm not switching hands, because switching hands won't show you the other direction, will only work on the same direction. So pay attention that I must rotate my entire body into this movement to make it go from the other side, without switching hands and do the obvious movement. But the direction is the cross. Same works with the plus. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Very simple, plus. Now we have the rolls. We have rolls. This hand perform roll, but it's very similar to the cross direction because the upper hand does roll. So those directions kind of work simultaneously, the cross and the roll direction. So this is roll, but it's also the cross. The hand rolls. The back roll is here and here. And while this direction is pretty intuitive, this direction is very hard to perform. It's not as useful. It is possible but not as useful. And of course we have the step direction, which is perfect for this type of holding. And we usually don't have real rear end when we are holding this way. The next holding is the symmetrical holding, 2 hands in pronation. Very easy, and I deliberately stand with one leg forward and not symmetrical stand so you can see the difference in the sides. So we have the 45 degrees, the cross direction. We have the plus direction, which is very direct with both ends. The roll direction goes together with the cross direction. Back roll for this, for attacking, because my hands are together here. So the only meaning it can get is if I'm doing this to pull him backwards. And from the other direction here, if I bypass him and pull him backwards. And of course, stab and stab direction. Very easy, very fun doing. The asymmetric holding in the middle, pronation, supination directions. Again, 45 degrees, 2, we have 3, we have 4, but we can also rotate. But this is roll, this is not cross. This direction is roll and roll. See my hand do this, roll. Just like with the edge holding. This is roll, this is not the 45 degrees, but roll. So in the middle we have this on the X direction and we have this on the roll. So 1 and 2. Imagine you want to shave him with a movement to understand the roll direction. and we have the back roll, and again here the back roll is this direction. Stabbing, of course, 1, 2, I switch my legs if you could notice, 1 and 2, okay? So stabbing is obvious with pole weapons. Directions of defense, this is a bit more complex. Different lengths and different weight can work in different sorts of defense, but this will be about directions and holdings and not about different steps. So let's start with this holding, the cross. We have 2, we have 3, we don't really have 4, this will just slide up and hit me. So we have 3 real direction in the X. We have the plus, very useful in the plus directions. In the roll direction, it works like the 45 degrees. I use a ground to make the back roll direction. This is back roll direction. And we have the other side. But this is very, very difficult and very slow movement, right? This is not real direction. See? This, if I just put it like this, it's not really back roll. This is just plus direction. So it's a bit complicated to see exactly the 12 direction without stabbing with a two-handed weapon. It's much easier with a single-handed weapon, but the basics are there. It's more difficult to make the analogy, but it's still the basic movement. Now let's move on to the symmetrical position. Of course, the plus direction. 1, 2. Now see this? This is roll and plus direction together. And to the other side, because it's symmetrical holding. If I want the cross directions, again, it works the same. I can with the middle of the stick, or I can with the edge of the stick. So we have 1, and we have 2, and we have 3, and 4. And of course, if I want to defend with roll, I can't do this. This is not real defense, right? I'm stuck here. This is only transition for something else. So there is not real roll direction in this holding. Not for attack, not really, and not for defense. The back roll is of course this, but it's very hard to defend against a weapon. It actually becomes the attack. So mainly cross and plus directions. And the last holding is the asymmetrical holding in the middle, pronation, supination. So we have the 1 and 2 and 3, but this time we do have 4 because we have the rear part, so we can just do the 4x direction. Now the up down and right left direction, the plus. 1, 2, 3 and 4. The roll direction again is not really active here. The back roll direction is here, and the other direction is not really working in defense. So with the two-handed steps and pole weapons, we don't have all the directions of defense, unlike with single-handed weapon. Pay attention, play with it to understand really what works and doesn't work for you. This was only a small demonstration, it's not everything possible, but know that the directions are limited when you are holding a two-handed pole weapon. Where do we want to hit with a stick or any pole weapon? Actually, wherever we can. We can hit with the middle section. We can use it for pulling, for manipulation, for pushing, for defense. I can do this. So we can use the middle section. We can use the edges, of course. If I have blade, so I can use the blade. I can poke, I can hit with every part of the pole weapon in many directions. And I can play with my range. I can go to short range and long range in a very short time. I can pull here, break distance and go to larger range. So it very depends on what I want to do. I can do this and hit his feet, ankles, knees, groin, into his thigh muscle, stomach, back, elbow, chest, back again, neck, head, face, chin, throat, wherever. So his entire body is a target for me. It depends on the range and only on my ability to move with the weapon and feel vivid with this weapon. So everywhere is a target and every part of the weapon is active. As always, we have 4 motoric principles. We have the figure 8. We can do it with any of the holds, but it has different manifestation with different holdings. I can do it like this. This is still figure 8, but this works on the symmetrical holding. You see, I can hold the stick in wide hold if I want to push with my entire body, and this is figure 8. See? 1, 2, this is figure 8. The switching sides, the switching hands game. Very basic for two-handed weapons, figure 8. The next principle we have is chasing hands. The hands work together all the time. This is chasing hands. See? Hands work together. Always together. They can't operate in not chasing mode because they are connected with the weapon between them. Even this is chasing hands. You see, because I rotate my hands in the same direction of the circle, forward. Both hands are moving on the upper side forward, on the lower side backwards to me. So we don't really have separation of direction or opposite direction with two-handed weapons. We can apply it if we want to create power, like this, for example. See, I move together in opposite directions, right? And I separate here. So this is almost the only use of it. So let's talk about switching holdings. When we are using pole weapons, especially staves, we will change our holding probably a lot. So let's start. We use single-handed holding and we can easily make it two-handed holding. This is the obvious, right? Now we have this position. This position, the asymmetrical position, can really easily become the edge position. See? I just slide my hands toward each other and it becomes the middle position, edge position, middle edge. Very easy. See? I was in the edge position and just made it slide into the middle position and back into some sort of edge position. So I switch hands all the time, depend on what edge of the weapon I want to use. And the switching can be very easy from the opposite direction into the symmetric direction. See? From here, the supination, pronation, holding, I just switch into the symmetrical pronation holding. I do rotational movement, and this rotational movement allows me very easy, see, to switch holdings again. Why? Because this is what happens. You move to some angle, you can't do anything anymore with your hands, and you just want to switch into different holdings. Another thing we can do, we can use the leg. We can start with a standing pole weapon and just push it with our leg into a fighting position. Backward, see, this, and forward. Or switching direction if I want to go here. And it works, of course, perfectly when you're using short staff or walking stick. You're just a weak, helpless old man, but you actually armed with your walking stick. Now, walking sticks have another sort of holding. I don't recommend this with shorter sticks. It's possible, I don't recommend it. And this sort of holding. Why? Because with walking stick we already hold the stick up here. So we can just use this movement when the weapon is here. Unlike we usually hold a stick, a one-handed stick, like this. Walking stick, stick. Another thing we can do with long weapons is using our body. We can use it over our neck. See? I slide it backwards, here, and over my neck. I do this. It's not that useful. It looks nice on videos. I don't think I ever used it in weapon sparring, but this is when I use my body here and pull down. See, this is roll movement. I roll the forward hand and pull up the back hand. This is hands working together, chasing hands, and I drop the weight, but I use it from the shoulder. You see the pole is, the staff is leaning on my shoulder, and here again. So when we are using staves, it's actually using any pole weapons. We have different sizes, different lengths, different weights, and it causes us to work with them in different ways. Practice several different types at least, so you can construct the different feeling for different types of poles and hold them and grab them and understand them quickly, because in real life you are not walking around poles, but you can use any broomstick as a pole weapon. Pay attention to the different directions you can have in different holdings for defense, earth, and for attack. You don't have all the defense directions with pole weapons, but you can manipulate and switch hands and make them possible. And pay attention, you have two ends, you can work with both of them, and you have the entire body of the staff of the pole weapon to work with for attack, for defense, for manipulations. And of course you can switch hands, use your legs, use your body together in movement with a stick. Very, very important. Let's see some stuff we can do with weapons. So let's see some stuff we can do with weapons. Okay, defense, slide, push. And it doesn't matter if I'm holding the larger stick or not. See? I push here and rotate it here. Don't try to disarm him if you don't have to. I have a weapon. If I try to disarm him, I just pay attention to the weapon and not him. But if I don't try to disarm him, I will just attack him again. I have two ends for the weapon. See? I can press here, switch positions, pull his leg upward, strike with my hand. I don't have to use the weapon. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. See? I press the stick on him and I'm using my body to lock his stick here. And my leg I'm pushing. If I had a longer staff, very easy. Of course I can choke him, I can manipulate him in any way I want when I lock him in with my stick. The applications are endless, of course. This is just some peanuts, so you can see what's possible, but actually it's no different from any other weapon. I try to stab, I try to hit, blunt hits, I try to use if I have any weapon on the edge, and I try to manipulate by apply pressure on his joints and muscles with the weapon itself.